Has LSU found its Friday night ace? His former teammate has an opinion. You'll hear it next. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. A couple of former Tigers are now Super Bowl champions. After Super Bowl 59, get you an updated count on the number of Tigers that have won rings. That's just a wedding ring, but not just a wedding ring. But we'll actually focus a little on LSU baseball today as the Tigers open up the season on Friday at the box against Purdue Fort Wayne. And my goodness, is there a lot of expectation and anticipation around this season for Jay Johnson's squad after signing the number one high school class in the country and the number one transfer portal class in the country. And oh, by the way, you have studs returning all over the field. Stephen Milam, Michael Braswell, Bear Jones, Jake Brown, Ashton Larson. Yeah, there's a lot of people excited about this LSU baseball team, which is a consensus preseason top 5. They're as high as number 2 in the country preseason. But one of the giant questions is going to be about the rotation. Now, that's true for any team really in any given season. And what's interesting about this LSU team in particular is there is no shortage of arms and options for this LSU baseball team. Jay Johnson went into the transfer portal and he knew that a year ago, the lack of arms is what did that LSU team in, unfortunately. We all expected a year ago that coming off of the amazing performance in Omaha, that Thatcher Hurd was going to be your front of the rotation guy, and it never materialized. And you went and got Luke Holman and Gage Jump out of the portal, and that was supposed to be one of the best, if not the best rotation in the country. Well, Holman was consistent. Jump by the end of the season was your best pitcher. Hurd never found consistency, and you really never found depth behind them. Griffin Herring was very good for you, but after that, you struggled to find arms you could consistently count on. So Jay Johnson knew that. So they went into the transfer portal this year, and my goodness, did they go ham. Of course, they go and add Connor Ware from JUCO. They go and add a guy like Anthony Ianson from UC San Diego. One of, if not the top arm in the country in the portal. Zach Cohen was Wofford's Friday night guy. Jacob Myers from Nichols, who was one of the top strikeout pitchers in the country. They bring in Chandler Dorsey from South Florida, who's a closer. They got Connor Benge from Dallas Baptist. Devin Sheeran's a 6'5", 245-pound flamethrower who unfortunately is tore his ACL and is not available this year. But the point is, they went and got arms. Big-time arms to couple with Cade Anderson, who threw a lot for you last year as a freshman. Shea Shores coming off of Tommy John surgery. You get the point. There is no shortage of options and no shortage of talent. What you don't have right now are proven commodities at this level. So, thought it was a good opportunity to call on Will Hellmers. Now, Will Hellmers is a guy from Jesuit in New Orleans, who the last time we, of course, hung around the LSU program, and the last time we saw Will Hellmers, he was giving the performance of a lifetime in what would be the last game that he would pitch for LSU in the regional final against North Carolina. He went 5 2/3, no runs on just 2 hits. He struck out 4, walked only 2. It was an incredible performance on 71 pitches, a guy that just hadn't thrown very much. But Hellmers is a team guy, and he's a good, savvy pitcher who knew how to get college hitters out. That's operative. Hellmers maybe didn't have the best stuff like some of the guys I just mentioned, but he knew how to get college hitters out. So Will Hellmers' career now is over. He's hanging around Baton Rouge. called him, asked him to come on my radio show. He's been watching this LSU team. He's been going to a lot of the intra-squad scrimmages, some of the practices, so he's kept an eye on him. And he's got the perspective of knowing these guys because he played with a lot of them a year ago. And I asked him point blank, so far in this preseason practice and these workouts and these scrimmages, who's one guy? I didn't say pitching. I didn't say defense. I just said, who's one guy so far that's caught your eye? Here's his answer.
Man, the first person that caught my eye is the first guy on the field, Cade Anderson. I mean, he just having to, play with Cade last year, he looks like a totally different player. Really does. He looks like a big leaguer on the mound. And I've seen some in my time at LSU, and he has the makings of becoming somebody like that. He has got a totally different mental game, just the way he, exudes confidence on the mound. And I know they haven't played anybody in a different jersey yet, but he's the first person that really struck my eye as somebody that's going to be a game changer.
What's interesting about Cade last year, Will, is he did so well in the pre-conference. Look, when he got into conference play, at times struggled to get SEC hitters out. What is the biggest adjustment there for a young guy going from high school to then facing SEC hitters? Something, honestly, Will, that a guy like William Schmidt's going to face this year as well.
Absolutely, and it happened to me. It happened. It happens to everybody. Everybody that has to make that transition it's tough. And the biggest thing, like for myself, I pitched most of those midweek games kind of very similar to Cade. Pitched a lot of midweeks, threw some on the inning, on the weekends against the non-conference teams, and then got into the SEC play and struggled. And I couldn't land a breaking pitch. And something similar with Cade is he couldn't, land that breaking pitch all the time. Had the fastball, has some good life on his fastball from the left side, but was struggling to land that breaking pitch. And watching him this year, he's got command of 4 elite left-handed pitches. And I'm excited to watch.
That is a great sign. If Cade Anderson has command of 4 elite pitches from the left side, he's dangerous. But just to underscore the point about Cade Anderson, if you don't remember. So Cade Anderson is a 6'2", 186-pound sophomore lefty from St. Paul's. He was the number 1 pitcher in the state of Louisiana a year ago. He shows up, and he was awesome in the pre-conference. I'm not going to bore you with numbers. Just understand what I'm saying. So his first action was against Central Arkansas. 4 innings pitched, 1 run on 3 hits, struck out 6. Then he pitches at Rice. 5 innings pitched, no runs. 3 runs, 3 hits, struck out 7, walked 1. He faces Southeastern. 5 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts to 2 walks, allowed just 1 run on 2 hits. He throws against North Dakota State, 2 2/3, strikes out a guy, walks a guy, did allow 3 hits. But he'd been so good in the pre-conference, they get into conference play, and they use him out of the bullpen against Mississippi State. He faces 5 hitters, gives up 3 hits and a walk. Not great. The next week, they run him out there against Florida. He faces 6 hitters. He gives up 2 homers and walks a guy. Allows 3 runs. Back to the midweek. Southeastern, 2 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, no hits, no runs. Faces Southern, struggled, struck out 6 but walked a couple, and did give up a homer. Against McNeese, 3 innings pitched, no runs, no hits, struck out 4, didn't walk anybody. Okay, he's back on. Let's run him out there against Tennessee. 1 inning, faced 7 hitters, walked 2, gave up 2 hits. Struck out 2. Against Nichols, again, back to the midweek against Nichols. 4 innings pitched. Strikes out 2. No runs on 2 hits in 4 innings pitched. All right, back to the SEC against Auburn. 5 runs on 4 hits. Faced 7 hitters. Faced 7 hitters, walked a guy, and gave up 5 hits. 4 hits, 5 runs on 4 hits. It just never happened for him, for Cade, against the SEC. Against everybody else, he was awesome. He couldn't get SEC hitters out. And so I'm talking to Hellmers, and he says, you hear him there, and say he's the guy that's caught my eye. He's full, he's got a command of 4 pitches from the left side. And I asked him if he was ready. I asked Hellmers if he felt Cade Anderson right now is ready to be that Friday night guy.
Honestly, I don't, and that's just a realistic answer from my point of view. But as he gets into that, schedule and that rotation and, starts facing better hitters, I think he's going to get there. He's going to get there. And realistically, he's got to for this team to succeed.
I love what he said there. Realistically, he's got to get there for this team to succeed. And it's very similar to a year ago with Thatcher Hurd, where that team didn't reach its goals. I don't want to throw it all on Thatcher Hurd, but you had an expectation of what your rotation was going to look like. And when that falters, everything else struggles to fall into place. So I did ask Will, and this was the interesting part of this conversation. So I said, okay, well, then if you think Cade's the best guy, but he's not ready to be the Friday night guy, what if I gave you the lineup card? All right, Will Hellmers, you know this team. You should play with some of these guys. You've seen some of the new guys who have come in. I'm giving you the lineup card opening weekend. Who are your starting 3 pitchers?
Man, that's tough. I'm going to start Cade on Friday. And then it becomes between Anthony Anderson, from UCLA on Saturday, or Chase. And then I think whoever goes Saturday, whether it's Anderson or Shores, the other one goes Sunday. Because I think, that's your best, at this point in time, that's going to be your best rotation. So you give it a go and see what happens.
So I would be willing to bet those are the 3 guys we're going to see. Cade Anderson, Chase Shores, and Anthony Ianson from UC San Diego is the top pitching prospect in the portal in this cycle, who is a Team USA guy and preseason All-American and a guy that's got all the stuff that scouts drool over, but can he get SEC hitters out? That's going to be a familiar theme so far, especially in the early part of this season. I think these pitchers are going to mow through the pre-conference. But when you get into conference play, are they going to be able to consistently get SEC hitters out? Or who will be able to consistently get SEC hitters out? That's going to be the biggest answer, the biggest question that this team needs to answer. Now, you heard him mention Chase. That's Chase Shores. Will Hellmers also gave an opinion on what he's seen so far from the big righty coming off of Tommy John. You'll hear that next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space kind of helps me get back into a routine. So whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need and all within your budget. As a matter of fact, quite literally, the desk that I am sitting at right now recording this podcast came from Wayfair. The chair that I am sitting in at the desk I'm sitting at came from Wayfair. We just had a new hire at Guarantee Media, our company. And when she wanted to furnish her office, her desk and chair in her office came from Wayfair. The free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items, is awesome. And Wayfair's site is really easy to navigate. There's something for every style, every home, every office, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space, of course, for your office as well. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Okay, so you've heard Will Hellmers now talk about Cade Anderson, what he would do in the rotation. The biggest name, kind of literally and figuratively, out there is Chase Shores. So we got to see Chase Shores as a freshman, as you recall, and man, he was awesome in that freshman season. Chase Shores, we got to see him pitch in significant action against Arkansas at the box as a true freshman. 6'8", 252 pounds, out of Midland, Texas, went to Lee High School. And this is a guy who, my goodness, there's a lot of reason to be excited about Chase Shores. In that freshman season, he pitched in 7 games, and we saw him go 18 and a third innings. In those 18 and a third, he struck out 15, walked 9, but gave up just 4 hits. 4 hits in 18 and a third innings. He was so good. Against Tennessee, we saw him go 2 innings, struck out 2, didn't allow a hitter. 2 hits, no runs. That Arkansas game we talked about, came out of the bullpen, gave you 2 innings pitched, struck out 3. That was against one of the top teams in the country. And then, of course, he blew out, had Tommy John, missed all of last season, and now is back. And this is a guy who has the ability to be the next great one from LSU. With the ability, but it's got to come around. And I asked Will Hellmers about Chase Shores, and listen to the person who he just spoke with about Shores.
In fact, Paul Skeens was here for the Super Bowl the past 2 days or whatever, and we were talking about Chase and just talking with Paul about the mechanics and all the numbers and statistics, all that kind of stuff. Chase has the makings of a big leaguer, and it's in his DNA, it's in his height, and it's in his weight and velocity and all that. But he doesn't have the experience yet. He got to his freshman year, come in some games, start some Sunday games, and then had that unfortunate injury happen, and it took him down for a while. And so, he's got the makings of a starter, and he can be an elite pitcher. I think along with Cade, he's going to have to take some time to get some experience, get back in there and be in that starting role. And it may just take some time, but he's got it. And, he threw 5 and a third innings on Saturday on this inter-squad series this past week. So, he's up there in the pitch count, and it may just take some experience and a little time under his belt to get some SEC hitters out with a good lineup.
You got 3 weeks. You got 3 weeks before the start of conference play. And in those 3 weeks, Jay Johnson and Nate Yeskie have got to figure out what the best rotation is going to be for this team. And I honestly think it's not going to be something we know after 3 weeks. I think that this is going to be an evolution throughout the season. Ideally, you would love to go into the season and go, yep, Anderson, Shores, Ianson, there's your 3 in that order, go. It just rarely ever works out that way. We just know it. And, it would be amazing if a guy like Jacob Myers becomes your back of the bullpen fireballer. If Zach Cohen is a middle relief guy that can give you some length because he's been a starter for all of his career. There's just so many arms on that staff that the real challenge for Nate Yeskie and Jay Johnson is going to be carving out roles for all of these guys. We haven't even talked about William Schmidt yet, one of the highest rated pitching prospects ever to show up at LSU. William Schmidt really is this year's Cade Anderson, maybe even a little higher ceiling than Cade Anderson. So how does Schmidt factor in as a freshman? That's going to be so fascinating to see. A year ago, LSU didn't have depth on its pitching staff. This year, they've got depth. They don't have experience. So that's going to be the real challenge for this team, is getting all these pitchers innings and finding out who fits in what role. Now, LSU, they are really going to challenge themselves in the pre-conference. You're not going to know at the opening weekend because LSU is going to go open up against Purdue Fort Wayne, and that's not going to be really a challenge. And then they're going to play Southern, and then they're going to play Nichols in a back-to-back midweek. Then they're going to play Omaha in Baton Rouge, and then the challenge comes. They're going to go play at Globe Life Field against Dallas Baptist. Then they're going to play in Frisco against Kansas State, Nebraska, and Sam Houston. And then they'll play North Dakota State, North Alabama in a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend. You'll play Xavier of Ohio. And then here comes the SEC. And you open up at home against Missouri, and that's probably one of the good things, is that you get to ease into conference play against Missouri, unlike a year ago when you had to play Mississippi State on the road to open up conference play at Dudy Noble Field. But the grind is coming. It always does in the SEC. And we're going to find out what they do. Now, one more thing that was interesting from Will Hellmers, because we did talk about he liked moving Stephen Milam to the left side of the infield, thinks he's a super athlete, and he'll do fine there. The big question, though, is right field. That's really the one spot left that we don't know, and catcher as well, what's going to happen. But pretty sure Chris Stanfield, the Auburn transfer, will start in center. You'll see Derek Curiel, the amazing freshman, in left field. So you've got Josh Pearson, Jake Brown, and Ashton Larson. Three starters from a year ago. That was their starting outfield a year ago, all vying for one spot in right field now. So who does Will Hellmers thinks wins that right field job?
Right. The outfield's tough, especially for this team. They got some legit guys in Curiel, Stanfield, all the guys you just named they got some real talent, and they all want to be out there. And so I think you'll see a mix. From my point of view, I want Jake Brown out there, just from the way that he's performed through the fall with his bat. He's going to make plays. He's another guy who's got a quick twitch, going to track down balls in the outfield, get great reads. One of those guys who's going to be a leader for your team. So that's who I'm going with, right out the chute. But as you know, Coach Johnson likes to switch it up, and so he's going to do it, what he thinks is best, and put different guys out there in different situations and go with the best lineup.
It's kind of crazy. Ashton Larson last year played in 53 games with 40 starts. He hit .298 as a freshman. Josh Pearson started 52 games. He hit .244, slugged .442, but his on-base percentage was .352. And then Jake Brown played in 56 games, started 21 times, hit .264, his on-base percentage of .370, and of course, real toolsy guy who had a great regional last year. That's three guys right there who all were starters a year ago. I just mentioned it. Pearson started 52 times, Larson started 40 times, and Brown started 21 times. And all three of those guys are vying for one spot in right field. That's provided Stanfield and Curiel locked down center and left. But, of course, Paxton Kling is a guy that played a lot in the outfield for you a year ago. He's now at Penn State. He's transferred out. But, boy, this is just a team that's got incredible depth. Haven't even mentioned a guy like Ethan Fry, who they think the world of, as far as a prototypical big league body and skill set. But he's going to be vying for ABs and innings. This is a talented team, a team that we should see in Omaha if Jay Johnson, Nate Yeske, and the staff can piece it all together with all this talent. I'll get started Friday out at the box. Okay, Super Bowl 59 in the rearview mirror. A couple of former Tigers. They got rings. We'll tell you about it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. As we put a button here on today's episode, major congrats to Ty Davis Price and Andre Sam, Super Bowl 59 champions with the Philadelphia Eagles. Ty Davis Price is really interesting as a local guy from Baton Rouge who went to Southern Lab, came over to LSU, and he ended up having a pretty incredible junior season in 2021. Of course, he ended up rushing for over 1,000 yards, but he set the LSU single game rushing record with 287 yards and 3 touchdowns in that win over Florida in that 11 a.m. game in Tiger Stadium. But what an incredible day that was for Ty Davis Price, a guy who came in as a freshman in 2019, backed up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, played in all 14 games, was a guy, a local guy, a part of that national championship team. He played 9 games, the 4 starts during the COVID year. But coming out of LSU, leaving early after his junior season, as things had really unraveled for LSU in that 2020 and 2021 seasons. A lot of guys did look for the escape hatch, and Ty Davis Price was one of them. He went on to be a 3rd-round pick of the 49ers, and interestingly enough, was on the 49ers a year ago when they lost to the Chiefs, signs as a free agent with the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and ends up winning a championship. So for Ty Davis Price, he wins a national championship with LSU in 2019, and then now wins a Super Bowl championship with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2024. in January of 2025. And then Andre Sam as well. His time at LSU was short-lived, but remember Andre Sam's story. Sam's a guy from Iowa, which is in southwest Louisiana, started his college career at McNeese, and he was there for 4 years. That overlapped with COVID. He went to Marshall, where he was there for 1 season. And remember, Lance Guidry, who was his coach at McNeese, Lance Guidry became the DC at Marshall. Andre Sam went to Marshall. When Guidry left Marshall to take a job at Tulane, Andre Sam went into the portal and was going to go to Tulane. But then Lance Guidry, before he ever coaches at Tulane, takes the DC job at Miami. LSU needed a safety. They end up signing Andre Sam. He didn't necessarily have a great season at LSU in 2023, but it was his 7th college football season, by the way. He was one of those incredible super seniors that had not only a COVID year, but also a medical waiver. He led the team with 3 interceptions. He had 85 tackles for LSU and actually earned the team's Defensive Player of the Year award. Now, remember, that was an historically bad LSU defense, but Andre Sam, while he may not have been athletically a guy that you wanted starting in your secondary in the SEC, he was a guy that made a lot of plays for you on a team that defensively that wasn't very good. But now a kid from Iowa, Louisiana, catches on with the Philadelphia Eagles as an undrafted free agent, makes the team, is on the practice squad now, is a Super Bowl champion as well. So congrats to Ty Davis Price. Congrats to Andre Sam. 2 more LSU Tigers that are Super Bowl winners. And now LSU continues its record streak of Super Bowl winners. Through Super Bowl 59, 81 former Tigers have now played in the Super Bowl. And an LSU Tiger has been on the roster in the Super Bowl in 47 of the 59 Super Bowls, including 24 straight. That's a record, 24 consecutive Super Bowls. That's the longest current streak, I should say. 24 consecutive seasons, an LSU Tiger has been in the Super Bowl. So congrats to Ty Davis Price and Andre Sam, the newest Tigers to be ringed in the Super Bowl. Okay, that's going to do it for us here on today's episode of Locked On LSU. Do us a favor, please smash that like button if you would. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and rate us, leave a review, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.